What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to week number 5 of the Pokemon Speedruns Draft League. This is FFan Crazy, coach of the Jacksonville Jumbo Clawitzers. And today we're going to be talking about our week 5 matchup and team builder versus a good friend of mine, Sunrakasha, and the Earthquake Fish. We have known each other for quite a while. We both joined the league together this year, so we love playing the mind games, and I definitely expect this week to be really fun. I expect the Earthquake Fish to pull out all the stops, because basically whenever we play any sort of competitive game against one another, we're always looking for edges and mind games and things like that. So this week will be very interesting to see how everything shakes out, and either way I'm looking forward to it. So let's talk about the teams real quick. League upkeep stuff. Last week I managed to win against Rushmore, as you guys might have saw. Scrafty put in work and we managed to go up to 3-1. The division, the Alolan division, is, in my opinion, the most competitive division in the league. This is a division matchup this week, and we have Gino at 4-0, myself at 3-1, Earthquake Fish at 2-2, and then Blainister is I believe 1-3. But pretty much all of us have been super competitive in most of our matches, so that's really a sign of that this is going to be a hard-fought battle for this division. So this is a very big swing game, because despite having a good record, 3-1, my differential is only +2 because of how close my wins have been and how, relatively speaking, bad my loss was against Gino. Because I was trying to go for Hail Marys and rather than trying to actually go for shoring up my differential in the end of that game. So Sunrakasha, on the other hand, has won all of his games by a large margin, and all of his losses have been very close, meaning his differential, I think, is like +6 or 7, and his differential is a lot better than mine. So if I lose this week, especially if it's by a lot, I'm down by quite a bit. All of a sudden I drop from second to a distant third, simply because my differential is a lot worse. So, we're not gonna play any different, but do want to win this week to secure my spot in second place. Let's talk about his team. So, first things first is his Z Crystal users. So, last week he dropped Garchomp in favor of picking up Latios. Latios is a great Pokemon. It also fits his playstyle a little bit better, in my opinion, because he likes having those kind of like bulkier threats. And Garchomp is decently defensive, but it's not as kind of foolproof and easy to use as Latios is. And it suits him a lot better. And so it's another very powerful dragon. It's also mostly a special attacker, although it can go physical. Z Crystals commonly going to be using Psychium Z or Jargonium Z to make Calm Mind variants not lose special attack drops on Draco Meteors. Also, I don't necessarily expect him to actually bring it as a Z Crystal user this week. I actually expect him to have it Scarfed, because of how it matches up against Charizard. So it versus Charizard is 100% down to who's faster. And after a Dragon Dance, I'm faster. But with a Scarf, even after one Dragon Dance, I'm still slower. So that means that if I can't get up 2 Dragon Dances, spoiler alert, we're not gonna be Dragon Dancing. Then even a Scarf variant won't worry about that, because it has a higher base speed. So I do expect Scarf Latios, but there's a chance he just brings Calm Mind. More of a more standard set. He could bring Dragon Dance, although I don't think he does, because there's not really a huge benefit to doing it, in my opinion. It doesn't really cover him in any way that the other variants don't. So I expect Scarf, but it could be Z Crystal this week. Other Z Crystal user is Magnezone, who he's actually put in a lot of good work with. Magnezone is very likely to come this week, but just like Latios, there's also a weird matchup where it's like he could bring Z Crystal Magnezone, especially if he doesn't bring it on Latios. But the matchup against Scizor is very interesting, because as you guys might understand, Magnezone is really mostly there to trap steals. Scizor has a very good matchup against 3 of his Pokemon this week. It has a very good matchup against Latios, unless it's carrying HP Fire, which it very well could. I actually expect if he's not Scarf especially, or even if he is Scarf, but it's less important at that point, that he will highly consider bringing HP Fire for Scizor. It's good against Latios that don't carry HP Fire because it has Pursuit. It's good against Mega Beedrill simply because it has Priority Bullet Punch that OHKOs it. And it's really good against Ninetales because it has Priority Bullet Punch that kills it. And it's also, you know, just decent at mopping up weakened things. So I felt obligated to bring it this week, and I really like the Choice Band variant is my favorite variant of Scizor. That's how it terrorized Gen 4 OU. But because of that, Magnezone is like a pretty obvious bring, and he also saw how I handled Dugtrio with Neoligo, and so he may be going Choice Scarf to make sure he's faster than me and I can't superpower him. He may go Timid in trying to anticipate me being Adamant max speed and him going Timid, even though the drop in power is a lot worse, just so he can outspeed me and OHKO me with Hidden Power Fire. If he doesn't, he could go Choice Scarf, simply so that he just outruns all of my versions of Scizor and then guarantee the trap. He may think I'm Shed Shell, so he may not bring Magnezone, or he may think that I'm just going to U-turn out, or he may think that I'm just going to stay in and try to beat him, so he may go Choice Scarf and not run a Z-Crystal at all this week on both of these 2 Pokemon. Or he could just go Timid, just trying to play the mind games on my speed tier. I ended up going, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Quickly, gonna go through the rest of his team so we can save some time. His main idea of his team is like a U-turn team, so he's got Volt Switch on both Rotom H and Magnezone. He's got U-turn on both Mega Beedrill and Jirachi, and those are sort of like the main pivots of his team. That's really what he drafted his team around. Jirachi's really, really versatile. It's one of the, you know, the base 100 across the board legendaries, and it's probably the best of all of them in my opinion, versatility-wise, because you can run it Choice Band, you can run it All Mine Sub, you can run it, you know, Choice Scarf, you can run it as a lead set, you can run it as a Wish Passer, you can run it as, you know, there's all sorts of different things. You can run it as like a Parahacks, Flinch Hacks type Mon. So like there's a lot of options with it, but because he has so few Stealth Rock users, if he doesn't bring Swampert, which I actually do anticipate him bringing, it's gonna have to be that more lead role. And then if he doesn't bring anything but Swampert to check, like if he doesn't bring Scarf Latios, for example, then you probably want Wish passing Jirachi to help Swampert stay alive against Mega Charizard X. So it's one of those things where, like, depending on what he brings, he might be forced to use Jirachi a certain way, but if he brings those other checks to Charizard X, then he can do anything he wants with Jirachi. Rotom H, I think there's only one set he can realistically bring this week, which is the standard defensive set. I don't think the Choice Scarf version gets him much, because I think he wants Rotom H to be a secondary check to things like Mega Charizard X. He could run a Choice Scarf variant, I just don't know what the goal of running that would be. But also, it's possible because I think he's going to potentially... It's going to be weird. A lot of my sets are pretty standard with the exception of one, which I'll get to. But I think a lot of his sets are going to be a little bit more... He might try to find some weird sets just to throw me off. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not gonna say he's gonna guarantee do anything. Mega Beedrill, that being said, only has one viable set. I don't think you can run Swords Dance Mega Beedrill against me because I have Mega Scizor, or I have regular Scizor, so it's not a great option. So Beedrill, very good U-turner, very fast, very powerful. His Ninetales could run either a really, really, really bulky standard Aurora Veil set. He could run in more offensive Aurora Veil set. He could run a Choice Scarf or Choice Specs. All of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. And it's worth noting a lot of his Pokemon are pretty fast. Mega Beedrill's very fast, Ninetales is very fast, Latios is very fast. And then after that, he's got Jirachi at base 100, and a lot of things in the mid 80s, lower than 60. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because he does have some really fast mons that I have to take care of. Next up, Swampert. I promise he's bringing Swampert this week. It's his only check to, like, it's his main and most reliable check to Mega Charizard X as far as just switching in raw. It can tank a lot of moves from Charizard X, so I fully expect him to bring it, and I fully expect it to be defensive. I think he'd be mad to run it as like a weird gimmick set this week, simply because it won't be as good at beating Charizard X. Next one up is Alolan Marowak, very powerful but slow Pokemon. I cannot OHKO it with Charizard X reliably, so it's possible he brings it in as like a pseudo revenge killer, because Earthquake does only about 62 to 73%, and I'm not even running Earthquake, so there's a very good chance that he brings it as sort of like a, hey, something died, I'm going to bring this in and just hammer something really hard because you have no options. But there's also a possibility he can't find room for it this week because of all the different Pokemon that he's looking at me having. Toxicroak is interesting. I don't know if he'll bring it. I really love Toxicroak. It can run both Nasty Plot and Swords Dance, but I just don't know if he has any room for it this week. But if he does, it's gonna have priority moves, which is important for him. But I think overall it's probably not the best bring. Hitmonlee is weird because he's been talking about not wanting it on his team very much because he doesn't know what to do with it, basically. But it's also got Rapid Spin, which is pretty useful in this matchup because we both really want rocks up against our opponents, but because he has Mega Beedrill and Ninetales, for example, and Alolan Marowak, and I have Mega Charizard X, which hates Silt Rocks. But at the same time, we don't really want to remove our own rocks for the same reason on both sides. So he could bring Rapid Spin Hitmonlee. He could bring Scarf Hitmonlee to try to pseudo revenge kill Mega Charizard X. So there's a lot of things that Hitmonlee can do, and I have to be wary that he could be able to do a lot of damage with high jump kick and stuff. Shiftry is his last mon. He has not brought it yet. I do think it gets defogged and then it's like kind of like a mixed attacker. I don't know that he'll bring it, but if he does, it's like a pretty good matchup against like Celebi, for example, and I think it's pretty good against some variants of Hoopa, so he might bring it out of the blue. Let's go ahead and talk about our team next. So first mon on the team was Scizor, as you've been seeing on the screen. I went with a pretty standard set, but I just made it bulky. I made it especially bulky in special side of things because of my plan on switching this in on special attackers like Ninetales, like Latios. The main thing with Scizor this season that I've been really worried about is Scizor is really good if your opponent doesn't know you have it, like guaranteed no, so they can't just afford, on ladder or whatever, they can't just afford to run Hidden Power Fire on like 3 different Pokemon to try to beat it, unless that's like the only Pokemon that checks them. But here, everyone knows I have it, and it's very obvious what it's supposed to do. So for example, I can fully expect Ninetales to run Hidden Power Fire. I can fully expect Latios to run Hidden Power Fire. It's obvious Magnezone is going to run Hidden Power Fire. And so it's a interesting thing because of that. I have to be really skittish, I think, with Scizor, because Scizor has good matchups if it gets in a free, but if it gets destroyed by Hidden Power Fire, outsped, and get hit by Hidden Power Fire, I have to be careful. So I'm gonna have to scout out a lot of moves with Scizor this week. But if it doesn't have Hidden Power Fire on a certain Pokemon that I'm trying to check, it beats Latios pretty well with Pursuit. It beats Scizor with Bullet Punch. It beats Ninetales with Bullet Punch, and it is, fast. It has the fast priority essentially to be able to hit a lot of things, and then all the slower things it can hit decently hard. Those are the main Pokemon that this is for. I ran Brick Break over Superpower mostly because I'm not really planning on staying in against Magnezone, because I think there's a chance he runs Scarf to beat me. So having Superpower there for the extra power against Magnezone didn't matter, because I'm just going to try to get out with U-turn or just Hard Switch before like anticipating him switching in Magnezone, basically. So I didn't really want to rely on that. And Brick Break also breaks Aurora Veil, which there's a chance he brings. I don't know how good Ninetales is against me, but I figured it would be a reasonable opportunity to bring Brick Break. I wanted to run it on more things. I was like, there's like 3 different Pokemon I considered running Brick Break on. I just like could only fit it on Scizor. So U-turn, Bullet Punch, pretty obvious. Pursuit is for Latios primarily, It also does the most damage to Marowak, which I do outspeed, even if it doesn't switch, so that's pretty good too. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I ran no speed because I was like trying to figure out what I would try to outspeed. And at first I had some number in there, I can't remember, and I had a number in there, and then I came back to it today to do this, and I had no idea what the speed was for. So I just was like, where is the speed? Trying to outspeed it. It doesn't outspeed anything in particular. And then I was just like looking at what I wanted to outspeed, and like because Magnezone, like I could try to go max speed Adamant, but the problem is that Magnezone beats me if it's like max speed Timid, but I don't want to be not Adamant because it does so much more damage when you're Adamant. So I just said screw it, I just put it all in bulk, especially special bulk. So that's why the spread's the way it is. I'm gonna skip around. The next thing I'm gonna talk about is Porygon 2. So Porygon 2 almost didn't make the team. It was actually at first Spiritomb, and I Spiritomb is like this slot on my team. This is the only slot I have not brung. It was Raichu, and then I switched out for Spiritomb because I thought I was playing against the wrong person the following week. The week that I trade for it, I thought I was playing against I forget who it is, but the other Trick Room team that isn't Parahax. I was like, oh, he has like 4 dark weaknesses. I'll bring in Spiritomb. And then I was playing against the wrong person. So I have not brought Spiritomb, and I almost brought it here for Latios. And it actually does pretty good against Mega Beedrill, pretty good against Alolan Marowak, but it could be exploited too badly in my opinion, and I had to predict between Sucker Punch and Pursuit too well, and it was also just like a little narrow, so I just ended up not bringing Spiritomb. And I realized Porygon 2 is like pretty decent as well. I was actually almost not bringing Porygon 2 because at first I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like reverse trap the Magnezone just like I did against the Dugtrio. But I think that Stuart is going to know that I'm going to do that. But I ended up bringing it because it had a decent matchup against Latios. Like I could use it as like a sponge for Latios. It can sponge hits from Mega Beedrill, and it can sponge hits from like not super offensive Jirachis, and it can just stand in. And Hidden Power Fire is for Magnezone, and to a lesser extent for Ninetales. It just was like, I was originally going to put Hidden Power Ground to really destroy Magnezone, but I was actually afraid of Magnet Rise, so I just put Hidden Power Fire because it was like the next best thing, essentially. Hits Beedrill okay as well. But the thing that I actually very importantly put on here was Thunder Wave. I originally had Toxic, and then I actually had Thunder Wave on a different Pokemon, which pretty obvious who, but I'll talk about in a second. But Thunder Wave I think could be really crucial this week. It's less crucial than it was in my initial planning because of one Pokemon I'll get to last, but paralyzing a lot of his Pokemon don't want to be paralyzed. Mostly the 3 fast threats that I talked about earlier, which is Mega Beedrill, Ninetales, Latios. None of them want to be paralyzed because then Charizard X is the fastest thing, and if Charizard X is the fastest thing, you're dead. So that was the thought process behind that. I do think Toxic could be better against Latios to an extent, but Porygon 2 is not trying to kill things really. It can do decent damage with Foul Play. The other thing is Foul Play I almost didn't run. It's gonna come down to if he realizes that I could run Foul Play, he should run 0 attack EVs on like Ninetales, well, not so much Ninetales, but like depending on what version of Jirachi he is, he'll run lower attack investment. Depending on what version of Latios he is, assuming he's not Dragon Dance or something weird like that, he should run 0, because the difference between 0 IV Latios foul plays and 31 IV no investment is actually a lot. It's like 10 or 15% damage. But it's the sets that he might be copy pasting might not have it, and even if he does run 0 attack, which I give him enough credit to potentially look for that, it's still more reliable overall to run Foul Play because it does a lot more damage to other things. So I went with Foul Play, and then Recover to stall Hidden Power Fire for Magnezone, and yeah, if I can get in against Magnezone, I can probably kill it, and then that frees up Scizor to not die to it later. But yeah, overall Porygon 2 is just kind of, it's just really bulky, and it sponges a lot of hits from his team because he doesn't have a lot of setup sweepers. It's like Jirachi and Latios Marowak, but Marowak is slow, so you can beat it that way. And so and he has like He has other things like Toxic Croak, but again, these things I have other ways to deal with, the setup ones. But all his fast, just hard-hitting mons, I can sponge hits with pretty well. Next mon on my team, I guess we'll talk about Landorus. I ended up going right back to Choice Scarf this week. Originally, I was gonna run like a Rocky Helmet defensive variant to try to just punish Mega Beedrill, but there's a chance he just doesn't bring Mega Beedrill. Like, he's not afraid to not bring it, so I ended up going with this version. It's faster than everything unboosted on his team. It's not faster than Choice Scarf Latios, obviously, but it is faster than Choice Scarf Magnezone. It's not faster than Choice Scarf Ninetales, but mainly Ninetales is the reason I ended up running Choice Scarf, is so that I can revenge kill Ninetales, and then I can revenge kill or just do a ton of damage with U-turn against non-Scarf Latioses. So this is another safety valve situation. Stone Edge, Stone Edge was there so I could make sure. I thought it was 4 actually. Probably 9. It was for Ninetales, yeah. So if I want to be able to do the most damage to Ninetales, I needed Stone Edge. So I ended up with Stone Edge over like Explosion or some other weird move. U-turn does a lot to Latios. It's also just a good pivot move. I had to run Defog on this set, but Landorus is not like super key to success. He's just going to be mopping weak things up and pivoting in and out and switching into Beedrill a lot, so, and potentially into Jirachi. Speed was just enough speed to outspeed. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I think it's just enough speed to outspeed Mega Beedrill. That's what it is. Yeah, so just enough speed with the Choice Scarf to outspeed Mega Beedrill, Timid. Or not Timid, whatever the other plus nature is. And Jolly Beedrill. So I outspeed Jolly Beedrill. I sadly could not run Adamant. I really wanted to run Adamant just for extra damage, but I literally could not run it because of Mega Beedrill being so fast, so I had to run Jolly. But yeah, just enough speed to outspeed that, and should be pretty solid. Again, you know, having the fastest Pokemon is really advantageous, and he, like I said, there's a very, very good chance he brings Choice Scarf Latios, but I have a plan for that. So, plus, also, like I said, Porygon 2 can help check Choice Scarf Latios, so we'll talk about that. Next set, I guess we'll talk about is Celebi. Celebi has been a weird Pokemon for me because I know it has way more potential than the way I've been using it. Unfortunately, the way I've been using it every week is I need to check like a bulky water type or a bulky ground type, and this is just, that needs to do that and that alone so that Charizard can do the rest of his job. So I need to just be defensive and boring. So yeah, this set was Giga Drain, Leech Seed I ended up playing with, and Healing Wish is just because I have some Pokemon that if I can make sure that they're not, like Jirachi, for example, could paralyze Charizard, and that would be terrible, so I need to make sure I have an option to get out of that. Healing Wish, I went with over Healing, Heal Bell, simply because I also might want to get Charizard back in at full health, or Hoopa back in at full health, or even Scizor back in at full health, so that was the main reason I ran Healing Wish. Stealth Rock is obvious, because Stealth Rock's going to be incredibly good. I actually am worried that because Celebi doesn't really threaten that much of his team out, it threatens exactly like Rotom out, and it threatens out, obviously, Swampert, but it doesn't really, I guess it threatens out, like, Hitmonlee, and it threatens out, Toxic Croak before he knows that I don't have a Psychic coverage move on here, but the Psychic coverage move didn't help my game plan, so I just didn't go for it. So, there's a chance that Celebi's gonna have a hard time switching in. Like, Swampert's gonna be there, so I always know that I'm gonna have that option, so that's my only saving grace. It's like almost like I need Swampert to be alive, so that Celebi isn't just dead weight. Celebi's gonna be interesting. 20 speed was just enough to outspeed, I think it was max speed Timid Magnezone, if I remember right. I think that's what it was. Yeah, I'm almost positive. So that should be that rest defensive EVs for, who was that for? I think it was for Swampert. So it just can't just like do a ton of damage to me. So I went with a more defensive variant because of that. And yeah, the like I'm not really staying in against much. Originally, I also had Thunder Wave on here, but the problem is that I can't really do much else to Latios. So it's like I Thunder Wave it and then what? So it ended up with either Healing Wish or Leech Seed going over that. But yeah, overall, Celebi is there to beat Swampert, or just make sure Swampert doesn't go crazy. And this is a good dedicated check to that. It can also absorb status from things like Swampert, most importantly, and Rotom also. So having a way to beat Rotom and Swampert was important, because there's a good chance he brings both. And hey, then that means Celebi's twice as useful. So I didn't go for Recover this week. I went for Leech Seed because I knew that half his team didn't give a crap about Celebi, so I needed to make sure that when they switched in, they didn't just get free switches. So that's why I went with Leech Seed, and I went with that over Toxic because he has 3 Toxic Immune Pokemon on his team, 4 Toxic Immune Pokemon on his team, so it's like you can't run it. So yeah, went with that over Thunder Wave as well. All right, last 2 Pokemon. Next one up, this is a really interesting Hoopa set. This Hoopa set I was like, man, I feel like Substitute Hoopa could do a lot of work. There was another set that I wanted to run, but all I can say is Hoopa's slow, so I didn't run it. And I'm not going to expose anymore because I might run against someone else. So Hoopa's slow, so therefore the other thing I wanted to do didn't work. But yeah, this set overall came about because much like against Parahax, I was like, man, if Hoopa's just in play, nothing wants to switch in on it. It just does so much damage if it's just in play and not in danger of immediately getting killed in one shot. So, well, how do you set that up? You switch in on something, or you most likely from something dying or from a slower U-turn, you get into play from like a slow Scizor U-turn, for example, against, say, Latios. And then once you're in play against Latios can do a decent chunk of damage to you, but it does not want to take a Hyperspace Fury to the face, nor does it want to take Dark Pulse to the face. So you're going to switch out, and you're going to switch out to whatever you think your best option is. Once I get a sub up, you're in trouble, because I outspeed the I outspeed some Pokemon, and I don't others, but if you don't switch into something that can outspeed me and break my sub, you're destroyed. I ran this in testing against Yaga this week, before she knew what the set was, and I got in against Latios for free with Max Health from something dying. I set a sub up, and she switched out to, I want to say it was Swampert, and that's what the Energy Ball is for, obviously. So I was like trying to figure out like what does the most damage to Swampert, because Swampert can switch in and tank a hit if I'm physical. And the special variant of this didn't really get me excited because he has a lot of specially bulky Pokemon, and his physical bulk is a lot weaker in that aspect. So I was like, man, what the heck am I gonna do? And eventually I was like, I can just run and see how much Energy Ball does, and it does 100%. No investment, 100% to Swampert. So I was like, all right, we're gonna run Energy Ball, and it does a decent chunk to Rotom. So I was like, all right, that's good. And then I was like, oh man, what do I run for like Magnezone? Because that's not like super obvious that it beats me, but it was like, yeah, I need to make sure I can beat it. So I was like, okay. And then I eventually stumbled. I was like, I guess I just run like, what Z item am I running? Because I was set on running a Z item at this point. I was like, Firium Z Fire Punch does a lot of damage to Ninetales. It does a lot of damage to Magnezone. So I went with that. Hyperspace Fury does so much damage to things that don't resist it. It's unbelievable. And then if it's super effective, you're dead. So yeah, like this speed is enough to outspeed Max Timid, Magnezone. It's enough to outspeed, like, I kind of speed creeped Jirachis in some more defensive variants a little bit. Like I forget the exact reason I did it, but I put one more extra speed investment in because I was trying to outspeed Jirachi, trying to outspeed one of my Pokemon. I couldn't remember which Pokemon that was, that I was like, okay, Jirachi's gonna try to have enough speed to outspeed this thing. I can't remember what it was, honestly, but I ended up going with like just a little bit extra speed for that reason. Like U-turn obviously is terrible, but another cool thing that I did in testing that interesting was against Mega Beedrill, because obviously after you kill something, or they're not going to switch in Mega Beedrill because it just dies to everything, but after Beedrill switched in, and I knew it was going to U-turn me, I just subbed again with my sub up, and then he U-turned into she U-turned into something slower, and then it died because I had an Oko move for it, and I still had my sub up. So it was like, it was a fun way to do that, because then you don't have to predict what they're gonna switch in on and get it wrong, and then be worried about being outsped and killed. So yeah, this Hoopa set, it does take a little bit of like finagling to get it into position, but if it gets a sub up, it's gonna start hammering things, which was the goal. But yeah, Energy Ball, I was almost gonna put more special attack investment in, because I realized I had some free EVs, but the extra special attack didn't do anything, even when I had more special attack than this. I think even 252 special attack with this nature does not OHKO Rotom, so I just didn't. It's still 2-hit KOs it with no investment, so I just went with that. But yeah, this set I'm hoping does well. The special defense investment is just, plus the HP investment is just to be able to tank hits from Latios better mostly, so that he doesn't feel like he can just stay in and spam Draco Meteors or whatever else. Last model on the team is Mega Charizard X. We all know I'm bringing it this week. Leads the league in kills still by, I think, almost double the next mark. It's like 13-7 is something ridiculous like that. This set was I was like, man, Dragon Dance Charizard sucks because it doesn't outspeed Latios after with Scarf. So, and it doesn't outspeed. Yeah, it was just like awkward, and it didn't do as much as I wanted it to do. I was like, okay, I'll still run Dragon Dance because that just seems like the best move. Because then at least like if he doesn't have the choice Scarf, whatever, then it's still good. And then I was like, man, what if my team gets Tailwind? Pretty sure Charizard gets Tailwind. So I look it up, and sure enough, it does get Tailwind. I'm like, If I start running calcs at just how much Flare Blitz does to things. Like, Flare Blitz is damage. Then I get to Swampert. I'm like, Swampert, I hate you so much. Why are you so bulky? And I was gonna run like HP Grass and 2-hit KO it, but I had to predict it on the switch in because I couldn't just like miss. It was like Dragon Claw plus Hidden Power Grass did not kill it, and I was like, that sucks, because if it did, then it wouldn't be a problem. So eventually I was just like, well, I have this Tailwind I'm setting up. What other moves can I run? Earthquake didn't really do much because like Progunk doesn't want to take a Flare Blitz to the face already, and that's weak to ground. Magnezone does not want to take a Flare Blitz in the face, and that's weak to ground. Jirachi does not want to take a Flare Blitz to the face, and that's weak to ground. Beedrill does not want to take a Flare Blitz or anything to the face, it's weak to ground. The only thing that really cared was Marowak, and even then, I don't think I could 2-hit KO it. I could 2-hit KO, but I couldn't 1-hit KO it with unboosted Tailwind. So I was just like, I'm gonna run Calcs on Outrage, and then I did a little test to see how Outrage interacted with fairies. So like if you switch in a fairy on my Outrage, and so I was like, okay, if I click Outrage on something, and then you switch in a fairy immediately, do I get to not Outrage again into it? And the answer is yes. Like, so if I click Outrage and you immediately switch into Ninetales, I get to switch out. So it's not the end of the world. Or even better, I get to switch moves. So I can switch and Flare Blitz you if you switch in on the Outrage. So that was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, well, what if you like use Outrage, kill something, or you do Outrage, they don't die, then they switch into the Ninetales, and you don't get confused that turn because it's 2 or 3 turns. You also get to switch moves or switch. So I was like, this doesn't seem as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, if I Outrage into a Magnezone or a Jirachi, that's going to suck, obviously. But I 2-hit KO Swampert with Outrage, which was huge. So Roost was because none of my other coverage moves did anything. I almost ran Dragon Claw and Outrage, but it just, like, the numbers never lined up to where I could, like, Dragon Claw something and then Outrage to finish it off, like Swampert again. I could not do that, where that would be, like, what I would try to do. And then Hidden Power Grass didn't do enough, and I was like, I don't know what I want to run on this last slot, so I just ran Roost so that I could make mistakes and then come back in later, hopefully. So yeah, Tailwind is hilarious because I outspeed everything on his team after a Tailwind with this, even all his Choice Scarfers, so I was like, excellent. Yeah, like if his last 2 mons are Mega Beedrill Latios and I have Tailwind up, he just loses, so yeah, it was really nice. And Outrage, OHKO's Latios, really importantly. Obviously, Dragon Claw actually already did, but it just, the extra damage from the Outrage well offset the negative of like being locked into Outrage, because Charizard just does too much damage, where, like, even if you mispredict and they switch into the right thing, Outrage still 2-hit KOs Swampert. Like, what are you gonna do if I click Outrage and you switch in Swampert and you take insane amounts of damage? I can't even remember the calc. I'm almost positive it gets 2-hit KO'd, though. I have to look this really quickly up. But I'm almost positive that Swampert takes Outrage poorly. Yeah, it's 94.1% to 2-hit KO after Stealth Rocks, and 44.8 to 2-hit KO after Leftovers with no Stealth Rocks. So, and sorry, that's a lie. Yeah, I'm adamant. So I guarantee 2-hit KO. That's right. I went adamant because I can 2-hit KO Swampert. That's exactly why I did it. The only thing I'm slightly worried about not outrunning as being adamant 252 speed is max speed Jolly Hitmonlee, who can OHKO me with high jump kick like 50% of the time or something ridiculous like that. But I don't think it's going to be obvious to him that that's like the correct play ever, so I'm not that worried about it. Like, he has to get Hitmonlee in play the same turn and get Charizard into play, and then if it comes down to that, I'll just switch out or whatever. But yeah, so overall, the Tailwind is gimmicky, but the way I look at Tailwind on this set is Tailwind is just bad agility, and agility is really good on this set. So it's like worth running crappy agility that only lasts for 3 turns or whatever. And it because it beats his potential revenge kill options. And he has no priority that does any amount of significant damage. So, Flare Blitz and Outrage tear through everything. Yep, that's the team. I talked for way too long in this one, so I apologize. Stuart, I'm assuming you're gonna watch this. I hope you lose, but at least if you don't lose, I hope it was a fun match, and neither of us got blown out, or I blew you out. Either way. But yeah, we're gonna play, and from when I'm recording this, like about 9 or 10 hours after we go to Friday Night Magic, so that'll be fun. But yeah, looking forward to this week. The mind games are going to be real, and I'm ready for him to be like, why does Charizard get Tailwind, and why did you bring it? So peace out, everybody, and thanks for watching.